be talking about how communication affects culture. My name is Serena, and my thesis statement is Culture affects our communication in many ways. This speech is going to be talking about ethnocentrism, global communication, and how different cultures communicate. The purpose of this speech is to teach those how different cultures communicate. Ethnocentrism. I got this definition from the textbook, and ethnocentrism means the tendency to regard ourselves and our ways of life as superior to other people in the ways that they live. This affects our communication negatively because if we view our way of life and our culture as superior to someone else's, we aren't going to take the time to learn someone else and to learn how to communicate respectively to people in different cultures. Global communication. Global communication is influenced by cultural differences. This just means that when we travel to different places, those places are our culture is different than ours, and if we don't know how to communicate with them, then when we go to somewhere, let's say like Italy or China, we're not going to know how to communicate with them because we haven't taken the time to learn how to. Cultural imprinting begins at an early age. Cultural imprinting just means that our culture is embedded in us at a very young age. We grow up in our own culture, so we know how to communicate proper things to say and things that are inappropriate. Whereas people from other countries, they're learning those same things, so they're not. That's where we struggle at communicating with each other. In the United States, we communicate more on like a technology basis. We communicate more through text message, emails, phone calls, or social media. But in Japan, they believe they have access to, while they still have access to all of our technology, they still communicate solely, mainly face to face. They believe that that is more effective, while we believe technology is more effective. What is not said? Nonverbal communication is different anywhere that you go. That's even like city to city, state to state. Everywhere you're gonna go, you're gonna experience a little bit of a culture change. And body language, silences and pauses, and all of those things are different. So where we might view a pause in a sentence as someone just gathering their thoughts, other people might deem that as disrespectful. Cultures communicate differently. Right here is the iceberg concept, and it just shows you that this top part right here is the only things that we see, which include how different cultures cook, dress, and their literature and their fine arts. But the bottom half is the bigger half, and that's everything that we are not seeing, that we're missing. And that includes things like cosmetology, rules of decency, ideas on governing child raising. These are all things that affect our cultures and are going to affect the way that we communicate with them, but we aren't seeing them. This line right here is what they call the water line, and that means that everything below the water line is what we aren't focusing on, everything on top is what we are. But the importance of this is to see that while we can only see the top, the entire iceberg is important, and we have to understand the entire iceberg in order to communicate properly. High context culture. High context cultures are primarily Asian, South American, and African cultures. They believe that the context is more important than the words that we are actually using, and they rely heavily on intuition rather than logic. They also value body language, eye behavior, and silence more, and they believe in group harmony and value society. These are also collective cultures. Low context cultures believe that logic is more important than intuition. They value descriptions and precision of words, and they believe that we should always speak out and get straight to the point rather than just going along with what everyone wants you to think. The interactive model. I included this because it shows the proper way, like a proper how we properly communicate with one another. It has the sender and the receiver being able to both understand, provide feedback, and just fully grasp what the other one is trying to communicate. This fails, and if we don't understand other cultures, because what we're trying to say, the receiver isn't going to understand, or they're going to interpret it differently than how we mean it. So the conversation itself is going to come to a stop. And this also holds both communicator is responsible. Both people are held at the same to understand each other's culture and to understand that we both need to step outside of our box and educate ourselves on someone else. I included a slide about nonverbal communication because nonverbal communication is such a big part of how that we communicate. So, and nonverbal communication is very differently throughout cultures. So I wanted to include this just to show that. Eye contact. In Asian cultures, avoiding eye contact is a sign of respect. But here we are taught that eye contact is very, very important, and we need that to prove that we're active listening or that we really care about what someone else is saying. In Ghana, if a young child looks at an adult in the eyes, is considered an act of defiance. Touch. In America, we greet each other with a firm handshake, but in France, they greet with a kiss on both cheeks. I've also learned that in America, a lot of people, if you try to greet them with a kiss on both cheeks, they kind of view that as inappropriate or weird. In North America, it's okay to touch a small child on the head, but if you do that in Asia, it's considered inappropriate. Gestures. In America, we give a thumbs up to mean okay or that's okay or good job, but in Japan, that means money, and in Eastern Europe, it's an offensive swear word. Facial expressions. A wink in Latin America is considered an act of romantic invitation, but in the Chinese consider it rude. So as you can see, simple things that we do every day in our communication change very differently in other places. And in other places, you could just be trying to say to someone that's okay, and they think you're being offensive and rude. Conclusion. To repeat my thesis statement, the culture affects our communication in many ways. The speech will discuss ethnocentrism, global communication, and how different cultures communicate. I wanted to just make sure that I taught how different cultures are communicating and to show the importance of educating yourself on how to communicate in different cultures and just learning the very simple things, because like I just said, a simple thumbs up could be highly offensive to someone else. And these are my references.